diversified analyst here at Laurentian Bank. With me, I have Nishita, who will be helping me to moderate this session in the background. Before we start, some housekeeping items. Please ensure your microphone is on mute and your camera is turned off during the presentation. Please ensure your name appears on screen so we can properly address any questions you may have. We will request you to please hold your questions until the question and answer session starts. Once the presentation is over, time permitting, we will try to get as many questions answered as possible. Please use the raise a hand feature if you have any questions. If you experience any technical issues when it is your turn to speak, please communicate this in the chat and we will try to address those. If you would like to download the corporate presentation, you can access these in our virtual briefcase during and after the presentation. You can also explore more information using the tabs on the bottom right of your screen. For our final session today, our final presentation of the day is by Mr. William Traynor, who's the CEO, President, and Director of Grande West Transportation. Mr. William is a key founder of Grande West Transportation and has served as President and Director since its inception in 2008. Mr. Traynor has over 25 years experience importing and exporting heavy machinery and has successfully pioneered and brought several new products to the Canadian market. William has also owned and managed heavy construction equipment dealership throughout Western Canada. We're extremely delighted to have William with us, and he'll be sharing sort of the bus story or the Grande West story with us. We're extremely glad that you're here, William, and we really appreciate that you took out the time to be with us and speak with our investor community. So I will open the floor for you to present on your story. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. And we're very pleased to be here today. First, I just want to introduce the company. Most of you, if you followed us in the past, would recognize we started off as Grande West Transportation, and we recently had a new name change to the Vicinity Motor Corp. That's really to reflect our image and branding as we push forward more into the US markets. So a little bit of a corporate overview and history of the company. The company was founded back in 2008. There was a need in the Canadian marketplace, primarily identified out here in the British Columbia area, for a mid-size bus. Customers were looking for a true mid-size product, where in the market at that time, really, you had the workhorse of the industry, which was really a 40-foot bus. And then on the very light end of the scale, you had a small cutaway product. Cutaway is a van and chassis, which is really you build a body onto the back of it. The BC Transit was looking for a product at that time that would meet their needs. So we entered into a strategic partnership with them and really brought the Vicinity brand to the market. A little bit of our product overview. So we started off, we have the heavy duty product line really available in a 30 and 35 foot primarily. And recently we've added to our product lineup. We've added a smaller vehicle that will compete very well in the light duty space. It's really a 26 and 28 foot model, which is available in gasoline primarily. And then the newest product that we really brought to the marketplace is our Vicinity. I'll just bring it up here. Is our Vicinity Lightning. We're very proud about this market. We feel we brought a product to market that really is going to hit the customer demand. When we look at our market primarily, the Canadian market primarily is public transit, and we're dealing with transit agencies really from coast to coast. The marketplace in Canada, we've done extremely well. We have about a 90% penetration rate in the mid-sized market in Canada. And really, we're pushing forward now with a major growth strategy into the US. And this is really where this Vicinity Lightning bus will be pushing hard for that. The EV bus that we really brought to market, we think we've been extremely competitive and extremely innovative in what we've done. We really looked at what the market had and where we thought the customer base was and what they were looking for. So we aligned ourselves extremely with the automotive industry and looked at what the automotive industry was doing. So we chose automotive style components that are really available off the shelf components. And in doing so, this really enabled us to bring a product to market that we think is extremely competitively priced. We're marketing this product in the US in a price range of around 300 to 350,000 US dollars. But really what makes it extremely innovative is the design and how we designed it. We've chosen a automotive style battery. BMW is one of our supply chain that we have, supply agreement. The battery, the BMW battery is an extremely thin battery. It's about 7 inches thick. So what this has done is it's really enabled us to embed the battery into the low floor section of the bus. In doing this, you have a very low center of gravity, and it's a very, very nice ride in the vehicle. The other thing that we did is we actually put an onboard charger on it. So when you buy the product, you actually get it with a plug, which is much like if you compare it to like your Tesla cars. You can plug it into any standard electrical grid. And I think this is really key to bring it to the market and giving the customers what they want. Charging on this vehicle, you can charge it on any single phase 240 volt charging apparatus, which is really the grid pattern that we see available in Canada and the US. A lot of our competitors have brought in vehicles that use an 800 volt battery. Charging on that, if we look at in a comparable model, like if you took a 40-foot bus, traditionally your 40-foot buses, it can cost you upwards to $500,000 per vehicle to put the infrastructure in place to actually charge it with overhead charging. And that's because you're bringing in some very high voltage and bringing in generally three-phase power. So we've developed ours to be an extremely efficient, easy to use product with the onboard charger on it. The other thing that we did that I think really separates ourselves apart from the competition and it makes the vehicle extremely easy to use for the customer is that we put some hydraulic brakes on this. We really followed what the school bus industry was doing. And having hydraulic brakes on the size of vehicle that we have, it enables the driver to drive it without a commercial or air brake ticket. So again, very, very user-friendly. The market, when we're targeting this market, the Canadian market will be targeting public transit, but really when we get into the US market space, the US market space is really broken up into two. You have about a 50% private market and you have about a 50% public market. So this will make it extremely well priced and competitive for the private market as well as for the public market. Now, the growth strategy for Vicinity Motor Corp is one that we have to push into the US more. When we look at our traditional revenue stream is 90% of it traditionally has been coming from the Canadian market. We need to flip that around and get 90% coming from the US market. So we looked at the US market and to compete in on the public transit side, you really need to have your own assembly factory in place. You need to meet the Buy America, which states you need 70% US content, which we tick that box. You need to have an Altoona test, which will send our electric vehicle down to get done. But the Altoona tests that we've done in the past have rated extremely high, some best in class. But the customer base on the public side is really looking to see that you're putting the bus together yourself and you have the confidence in the market that you're showing that you're assembling the product yourself. So we chose the state of Washington because it's about a 30-minute drive from our headquarters up here in Vancouver, and it'll allow us to share a lot of the resources we have on either side of the border. We chose it to be close to an international airport, so when customers are coming to take delivery of the product, they can take delivery right from our US headquarters. It gives a very good presence to the US market, and it's part of our growth strategy. Along with that, we've really strengthened our relationships for our sales outlets in the US. We've aligned ourselves with a group called the ABC Group of companies, and they're really a powerhouse. They have annual sales of $400 to $500 million in sales, and they really have the same philosophy as what we do. You go out there, you work hard for your first order, and then you really need to service the customer well to ensure that you're going to get into the second and third orders. So they're part of our. We want to leverage their expertise in the marketplace and their existing relationships, and really help us gain the market penetration that we're looking for in the U.S. We're well positioned in the market really to grow the company. We have a very strong management team, a very strong board of directors. We've recently added Manuel Achadina as our Chief Operating Officer. Manuel is well known in the Canadian transit market, and he was actually the champion that signed one of the agreements with us that brought the vicinity to life. His last position with BC Transit, he was his operating budget was over $350,000, or $350 million, and his capital expenditures were over $150 million. In his role in BC Transit, he had over 4,500 employees under him. So to come and help us organize our factory, our organization here, and particularly our factory in the U.S., he's a very strong part of our management team. The key takeaways that I'd like to leave you with today is, we are an existing company. We are a leader in Canada in our market space. We have an established brand. We feel we have a very capital light model, and we have a significant amount of backlog that we're delivering here in the next couple of quarters. We have over 100 buses we're delivering in Q1 and Q2. We've just brought our Vicinity Lightning to the marketplace, and we're seeing a lot of EV tailwinds. Governments on either side of the border here, on the Canadian side and on the U.S. side, are just getting behind the EV revolution and really pushing hard, putting a lot of funding in place. And we feel we're in a very, very strong position to capture a lot of that business. With that, I'll open it up for some questions and answers. Thank you.
Thanks, William, for your presentation. If anyone from the attendees wants to sort of ask a question, they can raise their hands, or alternatively, they can also type their questions in the chat section, and we will be happy to take those questions. So please, again, if anyone wants to ask a question, they can use the raise a hand feature. We will unmute them and they'll be able to ask that question. But just starting with a question from my end, there's a lot of competition that's coming up within the EV space, and sort of you are also entering there. What is really I would say, the competitive advantage that you would have versus some of the other people who are aggressively entering this market?
Well, when you look at our EV bus in itself, by aligning ourselves with that automotive industry components, off-the-shelf components, we've developed our own software, our own battery management, our own power distribution management. And that's really allowed us to take off-the-shelf automotive readily available components and embed it into our product. And in doing so, we've come to the market with an extremely competitive price. Our price range of $300,000 to $350,000. Our competitors, we're seeing them on competitive bids between $650,000 and $700,000. So we feel we've got a vehicle that's coming to market at the right price and offering exactly what the market's asking for today. In fact, we look at our vehicle, when you're looking on the public side or even on the private side, you have to do a business analysis of how this vehicle is going to fit into your makeup. Our vehicle at that price range, particularly with some of the incentives available, a product A comparable product could cost as much as 250,000 US dollars. So when you bring an ours in at 350, $100,000 over, you can really build a business case. You could say, this vehicle, with given the lower maintenance costs, given the lower fuel costs that you don't have to put in anymore, just makes a good business sense.
No, that's good to know. And so these costs that you're referring to, they're pretty cost, I would say, competitive, the price points that you have. And a lot of products, like you said, you're bringing it from third party, like the BMW sort of batteries. What is it that's allowing you to have such a lower price point?
Well, we developed our own software for the management, particularly, the power distribution management that ties in with the battery management. And having developed that ourselves, that's what I think is key to allowing us to take these off-the-shelf automotive components. The automotive industry, when they gear up for a new model, they have the sights of about 1 million cars in their sites to be able to bring it in and be competitively priced and scalable and economically. So by lining more with the automotive, these off-the-shelf proven components brings that price range down. So it allows us to pick and choose what we're going to put in it, but enabling it to keep it at a very competitive price. We look at one of the major engine manufacturers that we know will offer a solution as well that you can buy as a turnkey solution. So they'll offer it with a battery and the motor and the management system in place. And you can pay upwards to $400,000 for what we consider like a conversion to put into the vehicle if you're taking your engine and transmission out. So this has enabled us to be super competitive in the market. And from what we see and our conversations with the customers, it's being very well received.
That's great. And just when you're talking about this price point, most of the sales that happen, do they happen from a dealer network, or is it like business to business sales that you're doing? And if it is happening through a dealership network, so the price point that you're referring to, is it something that includes the dealer margin as well, or no?
Yes, it does. That includes the dealer margin as well. Here in Canada, we market direct, but in the US, we do market through a dealer distribution network.
Okay, no, that's right. And the bulk of it, your sales are from dealer network.
In the US, yes. In Canada, no, we market direct.
Okay, that's good. And I have this one question that I see. It says that your parts and service revenue stream, and how big of an opportunity that is, and how much does you assume that each bus will require in its life cycle as a percentage of initial cost. So essentially what the question is that if there is a bus, which is a $350,000 bus, let's say, over the life cycle, what's the revenue stream from parts and services? And so that's it.
Well, traditionally, you see about a 20% parts and service, or actually parts revenue to your annual sales revenue. We expect to see the same thing with the EV business going forward. The major parts that we see that we're supplying right now are really, parts that are getting damaged, windshields and body parts and things like that. That's primarily where the bulk of our after sales business comes from.
Okay, no, that's good. And I would just like to remind again everyone who is attending, if anyone wants to ask a question themselves, they can raise their hands and we can unmute them and they'll be able to ask a question. And there is another one that's come to me. This is why BMW for your battery source? How long is the battery contract with BMW? Do they have the ability to look at other technologies?
Yeah, the BMW, we have a secure supply agreement in place with BMW, so we're not concerned about not being able to get the product. We do look at other sourcing as well. We like to have at least 2 different sources of product available to us.
Okay, that's great. And generally, there's like in the industry, there's a lot of conversation about battery shortages as well. I mean, there are chip shortages, but we're now also looking at battery shortages. I believe Tesla had delayed their truck manufacturing for that same reason as well. Have you seen any sort of pressures on your production, or they're you're comfortable
Not
with
to
that?
date, but we're just new entering the EV market. Currently we have 25 units in production. The first five are actually being available for testing and demonstration here coming June of this year. So the first five that come in, we have one for demonstration in Canada, two for the US, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast, one that's got to go do some specialized testing, particularly, EPA range testing. And then we also have one that we're shipping down to the Altoona test grounds right away. As I said, 50% of our business in the US is on the public side, and we want to be well prepared for the FTA funded orders that we're looking to receive in the United States.
No, that's great. And just when we also have traditional ICE buses as well. How big is the pricing differential between your new EV and the old ICE buses?
Well, we think we've honed our supply chain with, as I stated, with more looking at the automotive industry to get that price range down to where it's almost, $100,000 difference between a diesel and the EV that we're marketing. And I think, as I stated, that's what's going to make it super competitive and really make it where you can write a business case and say, if you're a private company, this vehicle can really fit well into what I'm utilizing for, and the payback to make sense.
That's good. And we see if we have any questions. So one that I see here is that it asks Ed if you currently meet the Made in America criteria for your manufacturing.
Yes, we do. The buses that we sell and want to market in the U.S., they require 70% U.S. content. We meet that without any conditions. As I say, one of the conditions is an Altoona test. We've done extremely well at Altoona to date. And the other one is, manufacturing the vehicle yourself. And we tick that box very strongly in the state of Washington.
That's great. And I see one more question here. It's a little long. What it says is, does William currently see more opportunity in the U.S. through municipal orders, especially with Biden's funding through to local governments and transport agencies, or with airports and private fleets where you would have sea shuttles rather than city public transport?
Yeah, we see it as I stated, it's about a 50-50 marketplace between the public and the private. As to EV, EV is growing. It is the future. But really, the battery technology needs to catch up to the range that we require. A standard transit agency I'll use in the US needs to take the bus out and do 500 miles in a day. That's achievable with a diesel or a CNG bus, but it's not achievable with an EV. These buses that we're building, we're trying to meet the requirements of what the market is today, and the market wants to see 250 miles on a charge. We'll meet that, but that's a long ways from 500. That's why aligning ourselves more with the automotive industry, we feel the changes that are going to come rapidly on the automotive side. You've got car manufacturers to date that are stating they're not going to put any more development into internal combustion engines. It's that kind of push into R&D that's going to get the batteries to get to 500 miles on a charge. We could get to 500 miles now, but we'd end up loading the bus full of batteries and there'd be no room for people. So you need to have that balance, that power to weight balance, and it'll come. It's coming now, as we're seeing new technology every day come forward.
Oh, that's right. And maybe just last one here. This is about, in terms of your backlog, is there any side to your backlog of orders that you have with you?
No, we're building our backlog, as we speak. We've stated that we have over 100 units to deliver in, Q1 and Q2, and that's, that for us, that's quite an amazing feat. Coming through 2020, industry was slow, orders were slow. We're delivering 100. Our break even is about 100 buses for the year. We have put a considerable more to deliver in Q3 and Q4. We really haven't given a lot of guidance recently, but we're definitely online to deliver a minimum of 150 buses this year, and then grow our backlog. We're more focused right now. As I said before, 90% of our business traditionally, our revenue has been coming from the Canadian side. We need to flip that, and 90% of our revenue needs to come from the U.S. side. So aligning ourselves with some of these large, like the ABC group, and leveraging off some of their contacts, we feel we can really build a massive backlog. This morning, we had a news release out that we were selected from the state of Washington to sell to the state on a statewide contract. It's those type of contracts that are going to open it up and help us build that backlog, particularly on the public side.
Okay, well, that's great color. And I think this is with reference to, it's been asked that for your expansion in the US, when can we expect that expansion to be completed by?
We'll have our factory completed by Q4 of this year, and we'll be fully operational by Q1 of next year of 2022. We've done some things considerably different for the factory down in Washington State. What we've done, if you go back and you look at some of our past news releases, we've really tried to align ourselves with leading industry professionals. We have a group that's helping us set up our assembly line down in Washington, where we feel we can cut the assembly time and manufacturing time in half from what a standard bus manufacturer would do. And it's those type of initiatives, I think, that are going to make us competitive and keep us competitive, particularly in that U.S. market space.
Okay, oh, that's great. I don't think we have any more questions. It's just, I'll probably ask last one. It seems that, your price point is good. There's a lot of industry, I would say, tailwind as well. What's the one focus area that you think in terms of execution you have to sort of do, which is sort of taking up the bulk of your time?
Well, we're focused right now really on two things. We're focused on building that backlog and finishing that factory in the U.S. And that's what's really eating up a lot of our time on the management side here. And it's two things that we have to achieve here this year.
Okay. No, that's great. Thank you so much, William, for being with us, for sharing the story of Grand West, or now it's Vicinity. So really appreciate it. Thanks for taking out time and being with us. We really appreciate it. The investor community really appreciates it. And we really look forward to sort of, your expansion or growth opportunities going forward, and as you sort of execute the new facility in the US. So thank you once again for your participation. This sort of concludes our presentation. Thank you all for attending, all the attendees who were part of today's multiple presentations and discussions. I really appreciate your presence. Thank you once again. We have, I'll just highlight that we have an exciting lineup of presentations and panel discussions tomorrow as well, which will be led by our industrial analyst, Mona Nazir. We hope to see you tomorrow as well. With that, we are signing off today, and have a great rest of the evening, everyone. Thank you once again, William, and thank you everyone who has participated in today's presentation. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having us today. We really appreciate it. Thank you.